Welcome to another Adobe Script tutorial. We'll continue working in Photoshop. In fact, starting with this tutorial, the next few will build a Photoshop script based on requests in the comments. Subscribe so you don't miss out, because the result will be something cool many of you will like. The first subject is how to deal with subfolders, which a user requested. So here it is. To start, I've copied the code from tutorial 11, but removed a lot of it. I won't drag you through all of that. Just know I've reduced the earlier script, so now it simply opens each file in one folder and saves it in another. We're not altering the images any, not yet. We'll get to that in future videos. In the download for the code, I'll provide the script before the changes and the finished code. These are in the folders Begin and End. Use Begin to follow along, and End to confirm your changes are correct. To speed up the demo, for my copy of the script, I'll hard code the folder locations, so I don't have to select them every time I run the script. This won't be in the download. There, the values are blank strings. You can always fill them with your own folder locations if you like. It should be obvious how it works, but if not, post a comment and I'll explain further. Here in Bridge, we can see the script saved the 4 images. But let's make a change in the input folder and try it again. I'll put the images into a pair of subfolders. 2 images in folder Sub A and 2 in Sub B. I'll run the script again, and no surprise, it didn't find any images. Because there are no files in the input folder, only folders. We'll fix that. First, have a look at how it works now. In the process function, we make a folder object of the input location, then call the method getFiles. This goes out to the system and reads the contents of the folder. But we ignore hidden files and folders. You might think, we want folders too, so why exclude them? Okay, let's comment out that part, so the method returns everything, including folders. Run the script like before, and now it gets an error. Because a folder isn't an image, it's a folder. The appOpen method expects a file object, so that won't work. The solution is to make our own getFiles function. Function, getFiles, folder. The parameter folder is the folder object to get the files from. First, declare a few variables we'll need. var f, var files, var I, and var results, which we'll also define as an empty array. This is the array we'll build as files are found. The first step is to call getFiles on the folder, like before, but without passing a function to filter the results. That returns everything, including folders, which we'll store in the variable files. This is an array of file objects that can also include folder objects, so we need to go through it. For I equals 0, I is less than file's length, I plus plus. Store the current files array element in the variable f. F equals files I. Now let's look at what it is. We don't want hidden files or folders, so do the rest only for things not hidden. If not, f hidden. Next, is it a folder or is it a file? Here's how to find out. If f instance of folder, notice that's capital F, the app folder object. If true, it's a folder. Now here's where it gets interesting. When we find a folder, call this same function again. That's right, the function we're in at the moment. This is known as recursion, a function calling itself. This works fine if done within reason. Call a function from itself too many times, and the call stack overflows. because every time any function is called, the return point in the code is pushed onto the stack. That's beyond the scope of this tutorial, but just know there are limits. The stack isn't infinite. For the purpose of reading subfolders, it's unlikely you have so many it overflows. So don't worry, it's safe to proceed. Get the contents of this folder and combine it with any results gathered so far. Results equals results concat get files f. The array method concat combines, or, as the name suggests, concatenates, two arrays into one. So the results from calling getFiles again is combined with the current results. Now, when it's not a folder, let's make sure it's a file. Else, if f, instance of, file. Again, note the capital F, the app file object. If true, it's a file, so add it to the results array. Results, push, f. And finally, return the results. In the process function, instead of the folder method getFiles, use our new getFiles function. Files equals getFiles, new folder, txt folder input, text. And get rid of the rest. That's now handled in the new function. Save the script and go back to Photoshop. Run the script. The files and subfolders are now recognized. However, you might be quick to notice the files are output to a single folder. We've lost the original folder structure. That might be fine, if that's all you need, but maybe not. Here's how to keep the folder structure. Inside the Files loop, we need to know if the file is in a subfolder. Do this by getting the file path, then remove from it the input folder path. If nothing remains, the file is in the input folder. But if it's in a subfolder, the additional subpath remains. However, this approach fails when a path has space characters. I'll demonstrate with an alert to show the file path. And break to stop the loop. Paths are stored in URI notation, like web browsers use for URLs. Certain characters are replaced by %sign and the character's hex value. For example, spaces become %20. This ruins string replacement when the search pattern has spaces. Here's how to fix it. The app file and folder objects each have a method decode. Either one works. Pass the file path to the decode method. File, decode, files, path. Save the script and try it again. Now spaces are spaces. Okay, next test if the file is in a subfolder. First, we need a variable to hold the subfolder name if we find one. I'll add it to the top of the process function. Var subpath. Then in the files loop, we'll assign the decoded path to the variable subpath. Then remove from it the input folder path. Replace txt folder input text with an empty string. I'll add an alert to show the result. There it is. Okay, now we have the subpath. Next is to use it. We need another variable, but this one I'll use in multiple functions, so I want it at the top, under Script Variables. That makes it visible anywhere in the script. Var folder output. Now back to the process function. We're done with the alert and break. Those can go. In their place, create the output folder object. Folder output equals new folder txt folder output text plus subpath. We don't need the /path separator because the value for subpath already has it, or it's an empty string if the file isn't in a subfolder. Last, in each of the save functions, instead of the output folder text value, use folder output. Save the script and try that. One last problem. The folder doesn't exist in the output folder, so it throws an error. We need to check if the subfolder exists. If not, create it. If not, folder output exists. Folder output create. And now the output folder has two subfolders just like the input folder. For one last test, let's move some images to the top. Perfect. Download the code at the link in the description. And keep this code because we're going to build on it and create some useful Photoshop tools in upcoming tutorials. Like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe so you're notified of future videos. Also, leave a comment. I always like to hear from you. All feedback is welcome. There are plenty of other tutorials. Click the video or playlist on screen for more. Thank you for watching. We'll do it again soon.